ladies and gentlemen, because we're about to get a real treat. What is the future of HAE? Well, the future in HAE lies in our HAE youth. And one of the things we'll be talking about is HAI's commitment to the youngsters in HAE. That's why we have a separate youngsters program, a summer camp, and all the different kinds of things that we're doing. It was a privilege for me a couple of years ago to have an opportunity to meet a young man who was really special. He was a severely affected HAE patient who happened to find his way, and he'll talk about how he did this and how it came about, find his way to the United States when I had a chance to interact with him. His mother actually is an executive committee member of Hereditary Angioedema International. And when I met this kid, it was life-enriching for me. He was first attending a basketball camp in the U.S. and later attended school in the U.S. And this young man represents HAE youth so incredibly, and he's here to tell you a story that is quite remarkable. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming from the wonderful country of Japan, Yujin Yamamoto. Kill it.
Thank you, Tony, and the HAI Executive Committee for inviting me to speak at this very special gathering. Organizing a weekend where over 730 patients and stakeholders come together to focus on taking control of HAE and improving the patient quality of life is a massive undertaking. And today we can see HAI's powerful global reach, as well as its central role in creating a global HAE movement. I'm grateful for this opportunity today to share my story. I'm going to start off by sharing an invaluable lesson that I learned in my journey towards taking control of HAE. Yes, there is no denying that HAE is both a rare and a serious orphan disease. Yet, by drawing upon our inner strength and accepting support from our families, expert doctors, and HAE advocates, the lessons we learn from having HAE can empower us to achieve whatever we strive for in our lives. I'm willing to bet that my fellow patients sitting here today can identify with my personal HAE experiences. Starting at a young age, there were times when I would throw up for a day or more. My mom had these symptoms as well, so we just figured it was just something everybody had to deal with. I simply labeled my problem as an upset tummy and blamed it on overeating a particular food or not getting enough sleep. It never really occurred to me that something unusual was going on. As I grew up in my home country of Japan, HAE continued to worsen for my mom and I. Around the time I turned 16 years old, there were frequent visits to the doctors and many hospitalizations, all ending in an inaccurate diagnosis. This is the phase of my life where I started to begin to realize that what at first might appear to be an impossible situation can result in something very positive. Our family faced something truly horrible, where my mom had a laryngeal attack and spent a week in intensive care unit, where the doctors worked to keep her alive, while grappling with what they viewed as medically confusing symptoms. This awful and dangerous experience, however, motivated the doctors to finally figure out the puzzle and correctly diagnose my mom with type 1 HAE. The doctors had my sister and I tested, and that is when I found out for the first time that I also had HAE. On the one hand, it was great to finally know the cause of the problem I'd been experiencing all my life. But after the doctor confirmed my HAE diagnosis, he added a chilling warning, saying that it would be dangerous and inadvisable for me to ever travel outside of my home country of Japan. From a young age, I've been absolutely obsessed with the sport of basketball. I ate, slept, and dreamt about basketball. All I ever thought about was how to improve my game, and from a young age, I had set a goal to be recruited to play basketball at a prep school in the United States. The timing of my HAE diagnosis and the doctor's warning could not have come at a worse time. That is because the diagnosis came just a few days before I'd been accepted to attend an elite month-long summer basketball camp in the United States. This camp meant everything to me because it allowed international students to showcase their basketball skills in front of US prep school coaches. I was determined to make a big enough impression to attract an offer and to attend and play basketball at a US prep school. At that moment, it looked like everything that I'd been thinking about my whole life and worked so hard for throughout the years was going to be completely taken away from me. It is at this point in my life that I came to understand the power of family, expert doctors, and the people who advocate for HAE patients. I'm very lucky to have a very smart and dedicated mom who does everything in her power to not let HAE prevent me from pursuing my goals and aspirations. That was the case with my desire to attend the basketball camp in the US. My mom is not someone who will take no for an answer. She used her drive and ingenuity to figure out what steps needed to be taken in order for me to fulfill my goal and attend the camp safely. She made contact with a variety of HAE doctors, including a prominent one in London, who believes in a no-limit approach for children with HAE. The doctor advised my mom to develop a strategy that would keep me safe while traveling to the US, and that is exactly what my mom did. As part of this effort, my mom contacted HAEI President Tony Castaldo, and together they worked out a detailed travel logistic plan and devised a way to ensure that I would have sufficient access to medication while I was traveling to the US. Not only did I attend the basketball camp, but I also managed to attract recruiting offers from a couple of the top US prep school basketball programs. Not long after attending the camp, I received and accepted an offer to play at New Hampton School in New Hampshire and be part of their prestigious basketball program. Throughout the summer months, we took care of the required paperwork, such as obtaining a US visa and registering for courses. Things were proceeding pretty smoothly until 3 days before my flight was due to leave from Japan to the US. That is when we received an unexpected and disturbing email from the school's physician saying that I would not be able to attend the school because I had HAE, and they did not feel equipped to handle my condition. Given what I described about how my family dealt with the challenges faced for attending the basketball camp, you can probably guess what happened next. My mom once again sprung into action and started figuring out a way to overturn the doctor's decision. I admit, this was the only time in my life that I ever thought HAE might actually be a disability. But the swift and positive actions of the people around me quickly changed my mind. True to form, my mom spent hours explaining HAE to the school's doctor. She also once again put the power of patient advocacy into play and phoned Tony up to tell him to call the doctor too. Tony corroborated the information that my mom had provided, emailed a few relevant HAE medical journal articles, and arranged for a physician from the US HAE Association Medical Advisory Board to consult with the New Hampton School doctor and nurses. Thankfully, the doctors reversed his decision in time for me to make my flight and attend the school at the US. Once again, the power of family, expert doctors, and HAE advocates empowered a change that enabled me to fulfill a long-standing dream. I finally arrived at my new prep school and remember thinking that all my HAE problems were behind me, but that thought turned out to be false. Part of the deal that changed the doctor's mind was that I would be proficient at self-administering intravenous HAE medication. While this is something I fully endorse as a best practice in HAE patient care, I personally had little experience with this growing up in Japan. Because in Japan, when you have an attack, you have to go to the doctor's office or the hospital to get your attack treated. Maybe it was the stress of living abroad by myself or the pressure of keeping good grades while spending countless of hours practicing basketball. But at prep school, I noticed an increase in my frequency of attacks. I must say, learning to self-infuse was a bit more challenging than I anticipated. But like other HAE circumstances I've described today, the situation also demonstrated something very important: the value of healthcare professionals and how they take care of us and how we can rely upon them for help. Needless to say, I initially had a lot of difficulty self-administering HAE medication. Sometimes I would get it on the first try, other times I would just run out of veins to stick on. I remember many failed attempts to treat abdominal attacks and created a bloody mess. There were multiple middle-of-the-night calls to the nurses on duty, followed by slow, painful treks to the health center, often through thick New Hampshire snow. The kind nurses were always there for me and patiently guided me to self-infuse successfully. These wonderful healthcare professionals made sure that I left prep school with the confidence in my own ability to self-infuse. This experience, once again, illustrates that there are many people out there who will gladly help us, empower us to deal with HAE. Having the ability to treat my attacks allowed me to continue my studies and basketball career abroad. After graduating from the New Hampton School in the United States, I decided to attend the University of Toronto in Canada. Most recently, I spent a year on exchange at the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom, where I currently reside. Consistent with the theme of what I've been talking about today, my experience as an HAE patient has taught me that although I cannot change the fact that I have HAE, I can choose to not let it control my life. I now know that I can transform the disadvantage of having HAE into a personally empowering advantage. In his book, David and Goliath, author Malcolm Gladwell chronicles the life of a young man with a devastating disorder called dyslexia that, among other things, impairs a person's ability to read. Gladwell shows how this young man developed skills to compensate for his dyslexia and went on to find extraordinary success as a lawyer, a profession, as we all know, that requires a keen ability to process and comprehend the written word. This story resonated with me because it demonstrated that what I previously considered as a completely negative experience brought on by HAE could actually be the source of great empowerment. As I noted earlier in my talk, the frequent pain from what I thought was an upset tummy was in actuality HAE-related abdominal swelling. And all of the HAE patients sitting here today know how horrible that feels. What I come to realize is that enduring those intense abdominal cramps for all those years led me to develop a very high pain tolerance, turning the disadvantage of experiencing pain into an advantage of high pain tolerance turns out to be pretty useful in my athletic endeavors. My coaches take notice because I can sustain tough workouts for hours on end without showing signs of weakening. Although I might not always have the height or the stereotypical physical attributes of a basketball player, my high pain tolerance allows me to push myself harder than any of my competition. Having HAE has served to point my life in many positive directions, including this unique opportunity to speak at this very special global conference. In addition, as a result of my diagnosis, I became interested in the science of HAE and decided to take courses in biology and chemistry to better understand the biochemical mechanisms that cause swelling. The interest motivated me to seek an internship with a pharmaceutical company. Last summer, I was privileged to spend 2 weeks as an intern at BioCris Alabama Research Facility, where I had front row seats observing hardworking and dedicated researchers navigate the complex and high-risk world of drug development. Throughout my talks, I've alluded to the strength, courage, drive, and intelligence of my mom, Beverly Yamamoto. I've already discussed all things she has done for me personally to let me take control of my HAE, but that is only part of the story. After getting diagnosed with HAE, my mom quickly realized that Japan, despite its wealth and excellent medical infrastructure, was way behind the modern world when it came to taking care of HAE patients. Not wanting to let this unfortunate situation continue, my mom realized that Japan needed an advocacy organization that would bring greater focus on improving HAE diagnosis, education, and treatment. She spent countless of hours reaching out and gaining support from the Japanese and international HAE community of physicians, researchers, and pharmaceutical companies. She also began working with HAEI, who sponsored and supported her initial efforts in organizing the first patient meetings in Tokyo and Osaka. Never want to be satisfied. Building from the success of the initial patient meeting, my mom led a successful effort to create a formal HAE organization that is now known as HAE Japan. Never want to be satisfied with the status quo, she is now working with the Japanese government to pass a law permitting home self-administration of HAE medication. My mom continues to build HAE Japan while pursuing a professional life as a full professor at the prestigious Osaka University. Her research interests have evolved now and include bioethics and the impact of patient advocacy. We can look forward to some interesting and important scholarly work that will inform future patient advocacy strategies. Before I close my talk, I would like to say a few words about HAEI's efforts to serve the global HAE patient community. As a young HAE patient, I wholeheartedly endorse HAEI's Summer Youth Program and efforts to have special youth activities during the global conferences. I understand that youngsters are in the process of setting up their own HAEI youth groups. I also find it impressive that HAEI has 6 regional patient advocates who are responsible for helping interested patients form new organizations and providing technical and other assistances to existing groups to look to expand their memberships or broaden access to HAE medication. I strongly recommend that member organizations make full use of HAEI's free web hosting service and HAEI Connect, a secure, custom-built relational database that will help member organizations manage their memberships and communications. HAEI's presence in China, India, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Philippines, and Southeast Asia shows that HAEI is making smart, forward-looking, strategic investments in the power of patient advocacy. As I close out my time speaking with you today, I hope that my message resonated, and you too can seek and accept the support from families, expert doctors, and HAE advocates. And please always keep in mind that what at first may appear to be an impossible situation can result in something very positive. I also hope that you can find inspiration to look at your own HAE experiences as a source of empowerment that puts you on your path to achieving your goals and aspirations. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Gilbert.